Rogue Sun, issue number 23 from Image Comics. So we start off this issue with a flashback with Divinity in the hospital. I I hate this character so much. He's so annoying. So I'm gonna be skipping a lot of her story. But basically, she was put in the hospital, and then they fight a demon. And during the fight, the demon just like hits Dottie into a wall, and then Dottie later dies from that. And I'm like, how? How did she die? What are her wounds exactly? Like you see here, you see that she has some blood dripping from her shoulder, and she seems to be favoring her shoulder, her right shoulder. She has a cut on her shoulder. There's like some blood from her forehead, but that's not a cut because in a previous panel, you can see that her forehead is fine. Like the blood doesn't even make any sense because now that the blood's from her hairline, but later on, it's not from her hairline, it's from her forehead, but it wasn't from her forehead earlier. So the panels, like the artist doesn't even know what's going on here. Like what exactly killed her? She has a small cut on her shoulder and she dies. She died from blood loss? She didn't bleed out that much. Like this doesn't make any sense. How did Dottie die? Not that I care, except for the fact that now it's most likely gonna make Divinity the new warden, which means we're just gonna have to put up with her even more. Oh man, I hate this character so much. It's just I don't like her personality. That's it. I don't. She is too. She's like your typical girl boss, and I'm just tired of girl bosses. And the thing is, like, I have no problem with like female characters that are badass and stuff, but you gotta give them faults. You gotta have them lose and things like that. But Divinity wins every fight she's been in, and she wins it pretty easily. Even here, her loss, quote unquote, is Dottie dying. But it's like, how exactly did Dottie die from a small scrape on her arm? But even then, that's not like, because Divinity lost the fight, she still ends up winning. It's just one of those things where I just find her personality very, very annoying. If they were to like just dial back, like they're trying to make her like badass in terms of fighting style, while also having the quips and the humor of like Peter Parker, but none of it is landing. Because the thing about Peter Parker is that even though he has quips and things, he gets his ass kicked from time to time. He's not like constantly just steamrolling through his opponents while tossing out one-liners, because that would be boring as hell. He loses, he gets beaten around, and he's using like quips to like not only motivate himself, but also to try to like throw his opponents off guard. Divinity doesn't do any of that. She's just being smug because she is a narcissistic bitch. Like I find her very annoying. Meanwhile, with Dylan is trying to figure out who is going after the Ravyn Queen. Someone's trying to assassinate her. And Dylan's like, well, like, I found some information from the last issue, but the witness died. And the only information he was able to give me was that this person uses shadows to fight. So then like, all right, well, you might be able to find out something based off his power. So they're going through like a bunch of scrolls trying to figure out, who could it be. And at the same time, Dylan's like, in the meantime, what if the assassin, person's trying to kill you, is from within? Like maybe they're hiring the assassins so that it wouldn't come back to them. Who would want to kill you? The Ravyn Queen's like, nobody. Like, the women of this Aviary swore an oath. We're a family. We would never turn on each other. And I like Dylan. He's like, yeah, totally, absolutely, girl power and all that. But hypothetically, if someone did bump you off, who would benefit? And so there's a couple people that would benefit from it. So they're like, all right, that's something to look at. And so we just have Dylan trying to find clues. At one point, he asks the Ravyn Queen, like, what was your relationship with my dad? Like, was there ever a chance of him becoming the Raven King? And she completely shoots that down. She's like, nah, like, I thought he was heroic, kind, and selfless and determined, but he was haunted by things that he never wanted to talk about. And Marcus gets mad at that, like, why are you doing that? Why are you trying to embarrass me? And they get into an argument again. And I feel like we're just slipping back into the old relationship between the two of them. And I thought we got past that. I thought we got to the point where they were going to be working together, but they don't. Like we have later on where they find the location of where the assassin's supposed to be. Like one of the Aviary sisters tells him. So he goes, and it says it ends up being a trap. There's actually Aviary sisters there, and they're going to try to kill the Rogue Sun. And so he's getting his ass kicked. And Marcus is just constantly pointing out all his faults. And I like this moment where we have Dylan saying, hey, You always point out my shortcomings, but you never lift a finger to help me solve any of them. You gave me these powers. Do you believe in me or not? And Marcus doesn't say anything. So Dylan's like, fine, then I'll do it myself. And I was like, all right, finally we have Dylan standing up for himself, because this is something I pointed out in previous videos, that it's very annoying that Marcus, all he does is point out his shortcomings, but he never does anything to help him. Like, he never says, hey, here's a problem you have. Here's how you can fix it. It says just like, here's all your problems. And then he leaves it at that. And I thought we got past that. I thought we literally had a whole story arc about the two of them getting over their differences and deciding to work together. And now we're just back to where they were at in the beginning again. So we're just going backwards. And this is a problem I've had with this series, is that it feels like it's trying to do something, but it's not executing it great. Like, it seems like they want Dylan to start off as this very unlikable bully who picks on people and, skips schools and just causes a bunch of trouble. And then he has these powers given to him, and then he slowly starts becoming good. But we don't really necessarily see that. Like, he does start becoming good. Like, he does start trying to be a hero. But then he's still kind of bullyish towards the people. Like, he doesn't, like, his civilian life doesn't seem to really change. We have like this relationship between him and his dad, who abandoned him, and his mom as a kid. And so there's a lot of beef between them, and Dylan hates them. And you think, okay, so the thing is that they're going to be working over their differences. Dylan's going to learn about, all the sacrifices his dad had to make. And eventually he's going to reluctantly respect at least the superhero aspect of him. And they would work together, and his dad will help him become a better hero. But no, we don't get that. We literally have just them constantly fighting about the same things over and over and over again. And his dad's constantly just bringing up his shortcomings, but never doing anything to help him. Which Dylan makes a really good point of, like, you gave me these powers. If you didn't believe I can do it, why did you give it to me when you have another son and a daughter from someone else? Could have given it to them if you believe in them more. We did kind of have a moment where it seemed like he gave it to Dylan because he didn't want to put his other son and daughter into this type of life. And basically, like, his son, Dylan, was like kind of like the sacrificial lamb. And then that was never really addressed, other than just like a brief mention where he kind of brings that up, and then it just kind of disappears. And I'm like, maybe that would be something that, they should hash out. But yeah, I hate the fact that it seems like they're going backwards with this relationship. But Dylan basically just starts attacking the sisters. He attacks from the shadows, which is ironic. And he beats the crap out of them. He knocks one into the water. He collapses the floor and basically punches her down to the point where we see her. She's in a bloody pool, unconscious. I would assume unconscious. It could be dead for all I know. Which would be kind of funny if Dylan's just like, hey, you're attacking me and trying to kill me. I'm just going to kill you back. That would be kind of funny. I actually would respect him a little bit for that. But without too much spoilers, it turns out, obviously, this is all a trap. And the assassin has already made their way into the Aviary. So, yeah. I will say that this is maybe a third of a good issue. Half of this is the stuff with Divinity, which I hate. I don't like any of that. So that's half the issue. Of the other 50%, 25% of it is just us going backwards. It's we're treading old ground between Dylan and Marcus and stuff like that. And just rehashing the same issues that we've had with them over and over and over again. And so the other 25% is actually not that bad. So this is 25% of a good issue, and that's it. Just kind of sad, because this series, for anyone who hasn't watched any of my previous Rogue Sun videos, I hated this series when it started. I despise all the characters. I found it to be an interesting premise that was just very, very poorly executed. And I wanted it to be good, but I just wasn't finding any enjoyment in it. And the only reason I kept with it was because it was part of the Massiverse. And I kind of cover everything Massiverse related, so stuck with it. But I hated it. And then there were some times where it's oh, this issue is actually not that bad. And then it will go back to being garbage again. But lately, it's been on an upswing. I've actually been enjoying this series. And I'm okay, I things are starting to fall into place. I'm liking the direction this is going. Don't care for the introduction of Divinity, but I can deal with her if everything else falls into place. And now we're just kind of going backwards again. We're going back to we had whole story arcs where you would think this character would grow and become different. Like they will learn things. Like we literally had them at the end where rather than letting Marcus's soul disappear, Dylan's like, all right, you can stay here. Let's work together. Let's rehash our differences. And now in this issue, we're right back to where we started again. We're right back to where they were in the beginning of the series. So it's like nothing has changed. And that's usually what you would get like at the end of a series. Like for Batman, you always got to fall back into the status quo so that the next writer can, work from the status quo again and make their own changes, and then they go back to the status quo at the end. I hate that, by the way. I feel like that's one thing that I love about manga, because you only have the same people involved in the manga. Like you don't have a bunch of different writers or artists. The story stays consistent. You don't have a bunch of what ifs or crazy spin-offs or anything like that. And if something happens, it usually plays a part. It has a payoff later on. Characters grow and stuff. They don't go back to status quos. But we're doing that here, and it's like this isn't the end of the series or anything. This isn't like, the writer is making everything back to status quo so that he can hand it off to a new writer who can make their own changes. This is just characters don't learn anything. Characters aren't growing. They're just, they seem to grow a little bit, and then they regress right back to where they were at the beginning. So it's just like we have all these adventures, and it doesn't really matter in the end because nothing changes. At least that's what I feel like. I'm hoping that changes. I'm hoping it's just me like looking too much into what little we see here. But it just feels like we're just regressing here. Like there's no improvement in any of these characters whatsoever. I hope that changes because I want to like this. I've enjoyed like the previous stuff so far, or at least the previous handful of stuff, I should say, because I absolutely hated the series to begin with. But then I actually started liking it like a few issues back. But now it's like starting to dip back into negative territory again for me. But hopefully, that changes with the next issue. I guess we'll see. So, yeah, there's Rogue Sun issue number 23. Don't really care for it. I think it's like 25% of a good issue. And then the rest is just, it's 50%. I don't care about any of this stuff. 25%, oh, we're just going back to how we were in the beginning of the series with no changes. And then 25% of, oh, okay, I like this. So, yeah. There you go. Those are my thoughts on this issue. What do you think? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time. Take care. Later. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I still want to thank you for watching it this far, and I hope the next one is more to your liking. With that said, thank you once again, and I hope you guys and gals have a good one. Later.